Hello friends, my big ugly face is on your screen again for the patch 7.32e hero tier list for offlaners. If you don't want to watch this entire video, I don't blame you, but you should know one thing. Meteor Hammer. Okay, so let's get right into it. With the dogshit tier, we have Bristleback. I don't want to spend too much time on this hero because he's the same as he was in the previous patch, which is bad. But basically, Scotty, Silver Edge, Mage Slayer, Shivas, all of these items that people are already building anyway in Dota are all very powerful versus Bristleback. The Aghanim Scepter timing on Bristle was kind of the only thing that people played him around, and it's not good since the Radius nerf on the Viscous Nasal Goo. So Bristle is still bad. Razor. This is a new addition to the dogshit tier, and this one is pretty interesting because I think what happened was kind of funny. Basically, a few months ago, everybody was playing this Bloodstone Razor build because of 33 doing it. 33 eventually came out and said, like, oh, I wish I didn't do this. Everybody's doing it. It's not good. It's not good. The win rate was really bad on it. It just wasn't good. And yet everybody was doing it because it was a gimmicky kind of fun thing to do. But somebody at Valve wrote down, okay, nerf Bloodstone Razor. And so they did months later when the win rate was already bad. They added an internal cooldown to the Aghanim Shard ability on Razor, and the win rate went from bad to worse. It is one of the worst in Dota currently, so it's not a good hero. Okay, getting into the D tier, we have Axe to start. So I think he got a move speed buff and maybe like one other thing, which definitely helps. He needs it, but a lot of people are trying to go for a Meteor Hammer on Axe. And I do want to say one thing about that item. I joked about it at the start. But I think a lot of the heroes that got empowered by Meteor Hammer being strong are heroes that couldn't connect Meteor Hammer before because it was just too long. Axe did not really have that issue before. If you maxed out his call, you could connect the Meteor Hammer. And I also think that Axe needs a lot more buffs than the couple that he got. And he's too reliant on Vanguard, I think, because he has to tank creeps. A lot of these other heroes that are very strong with Meteor Hammer, they don't also need a Vanguard, which takes the same slot as the Meteor Hammer. It's like that first item that you would go for, right? So I think Axe, he's okay. He's better because of the minor buffs he got, but he's not amazing. Dragon Knight. This is another hero I see people picking a lot, and I saw a post on Reddit that was showing the win rate of heroes that get Meteor Hammer versus when they don't get the Meteor Hammer, and DK on both of the win rates was just bad. And the reason for that is, like I said, because I think a lot of these heroes that could already connect a Meteor Hammer and were already fine with a Meteor Hammer didn't get anything from the change, where they reduced the amount of time it takes to channel. So I think DK is just he was an okay hero before, and he's an okay hero now. Pudge, somehow this hero's win rate went up in the patch. I don't really understand. I think there's like a bit of a glitch with strength right now, where like I saw that in some games, for every point in strength, you're getting like 22 HP instead of 20. So it could be something like that affecting the win rate. But in any case, it doesn't really matter. I think Pudge Aghanim Scepter is still good. I think Core Pudge is still good. And so offlane Pudge, I don't want to call it dogshit tier because the win rate is not bad on it. And I feel like if you're a specialized Pudge player, you're going to be able to play it regardless of what role you play it in right now. It's just a fine hero. Batrider, probably a better mid. Honestly, maybe there's some sort of like Boots of Bearing build, which is another very powerful item that just got buffed on this patch. You could probably do something like that on Batrider offlane, and it would be okay. I also saw people going for like a Midas Batrider prior to this patch coming out, but I think this is just a way stronger mid laner. OD, this is another one of those heroes that could connect the Meteor Hammer before, and I just don't see how this patch changed him in any hugely positive way for the offlane. I think probably he's like a better mid laner. If he is a stronger hero, he's just better in the mid lane. But even then, I think this is another, like, I think a few of these heroes are overrated in terms of connecting that hammer, like I said. Undying, the nerfs to him just were not super significant. Decay wearing off a little bit earlier is not super important because people still lose the HP that comes from draining their strength. So it's like, honestly, you could even argue like you're doing damage earlier, at least like visually. It's like psychologically, they're like, oh, I'm taking more damage. I need to be careful. I can't run into lane and fight against the Undying. I don't know. His win rate hasn't dropped at all, and so I think he was a fine offlaner before. He's a fine offlaner now. Underlord, not better with Hammer. Not better with Boots of Bearing. I mean, maybe Boots of Bearing's like okay on him, but there are other heroes that like it really combos with. Not a great Radiance hero either. I think like a lot of the heroes that got buffed by the Radiance change, where they've reduced the cost of Sacred Relic, it was mostly carry heroes. You don't see many offlaners buying Radiance, and if they do, they're kind of griefing the game, because usually there's like a Spectre or Abaddon carry or something that wants to go for the Radiance anyway, at least from what I've seen in a lot of my pubs. Leshrac, Bloodstone is still okay. I've seen people try to do like a Greaves pipe build on offlane Lesh. It's also okay. The only reason that I don't want to put this hero in like dog shit here, I mean, I could remove it from this list possibly, but there were a couple of teams that were willing to run the offlane Leshrac at the major, and so it's like, okay, well, if you know pros are doing it, then obviously it's not the worst thing possible. It feels bad to put it in dog shit tier or remove it if people are still doing it. Night Stalker. So I think Night Stalker, my issue with this hero is that I think a lot of the Radiance carries that people are picking right now are very punishable in like the first 5 minutes of the game. And the first 5 minutes of the game, it's daytime. So Night Stalker sucks ass. And that's kind of a big issue for him. So, you know, maybe if they make him Day Stalker, he'll be good. We'll see. Okay, so moving on to the C tier, we have Sand King. So this is the first hero in the tier list that could not connect a Meteor Hammer guaranteed before, that now can. That is very good for him. It's a cool build for a number of reasons. So, number one, think about the builds that people have always done on Sand King, right? Historically speaking. There's like Tranquil Boots into Veil, into Blink Dagger, or like Mana Boots, into Double Bracer, into Blink Dagger. It's never just Ground Boots Blink, right? Because if you get a Blink so early that the laning stage is still happening, there's not even a point in having the Blink Dagger. It doesn't give you stats. So people always go some small items and then the Blink Dagger. Meteor Hammer is the perfect item for that slot, especially because Sand King does a lot of magic damage. He is good at pressuring heroes out of the lane, but then what does he do when people leave his lane? Nothing. He farms, which is good. It's not bad. But now you have the ability to actually push towers when people leave your lane. And that's pretty damn powerful, dude. Like, this hero is, he might even be higher tier. I just don't see a lot of people picking him, but when they do, his win rate looks good. He looks good. Spirit Breaker, another hero that could not connect the Meteor Hammer guaranteed, that now can. People are maxing charge and going Meteor Hammer. And the cool thing about Spirit Breaker is he's this like global map presence hero, this kill hero that you always need to be afraid of. A lot of people respond to this by just leaving and jungling and doing nothing, right? And Spirit Breaker, like, well, what do? I farm, right? You charge creep wave, sure. But now you can push towers. It's like, you want to evade me? Okay, I'm going to take your towers, and I'm going to limit your map even more because of that with the Meteor Hammer. So that's pretty nice. Even doing that with just the tier 1s is pretty important. Also, another item that just got buffed is the Boots of Bearing. They removed the charges on it whenever you build into the Boots of Bearing from the drums. And Spirit Breaker, movement speed based hero, obviously loves drums, loves Boots of Bearing. Sand King, that's also true for, although he's more of like a Tranquil Boots builder. And so the Boots of Bearing becoming stronger is more like the Tranquils translates into, okay, maybe I'll eventually get Boots of Bearing. So it's decent on Sand King as well. Shadow Fiend, Guardian Greaves did not get nerfed anywhere near enough. They tried. It didn't work. Everybody's still going Greaves on a ton of heroes. It's just that now there are more options because of Boots of Bearing and Meteor Hammer. SF, I think, punishes a lot of the Radiance carries that people are picking right now. Like SF versus a Spectre will completely dumpster a Spectre. In fact, I would say that that's a huge part of the meta is how powerful Radiance is in the carry role. Pretty much every carry is building a Radiance or their Ursa, and even Ursas are building a goddamn Radiance. I mean, Anti-Mage is building Radiance right now, so that goes to show how powerful of an item that is. So items and heroes that counter Radiance are good. So Pipe buyers, Guardian Greave buyers are strong because the small ticking magic damage over time gets countered by Pipe, gets countered by Guardian Greaves, which is why offlane SF is still decent. It's a bit of a meme. I think it races a couple of tiers if you're really good at SF, but it's definitely decent because of the Greaves. Venomancer, Necrophos, both of these heroes do very well against Spectre. You're going to do decent against like a Lifestealer or an Ursa in lane, like a lot of the popular carries. The ranged carries, the Drows, Nature's Prophet. Who's the other one? There's one more that I'm forgetting. Lena, of course. She's so S tier that I forgot she even existed. These heroes are still fine, but they're getting picked less. So it means heroes like Necro and Veno that get countered by the range carries are higher stock. And they both also build Pipe, which is great against the Radiance heroes. Necro, the one issue for this hero that otherwise he would be probably A or S tier based on the changes that he's gotten lately. He just got his Q mana cost reduced, which means you can go more levels than that, less levels than the passive. But in any case, the problem for Necro is Nullifier. That is the only issue. It is a bit weird to slot that item in for a lot of carries. It's not like games are swarming with Nullifiers like they are with Radiance right now. But the fact that it's still so cheap and it's just a complete answer to Necrophos means that even though he's a very strong hero individually, he still stays in the C tier. Visage. I actually have this one wrong. I forgot to move this. I would say this is probably A or B tier. When we get there, you'll see what tier he's in. So I guess that's, we'll talk about that later. Marcy. I think Marcy's best role is probably carry. I am hard-pressed to think of another carry that does more damage than her. And for that reason, she's still decent as an offlaner. In particular, if you're playing into a Drow, Nature's Prophet, Lena, you can full to zero these heroes with just a Basher and a BKB. And they can't do shit no matter how many items they have. So she's very good against that. But like I said, that's more of a carry thing that would be ideal there. Dawnbreaker. I think Dawnbreaker is actually a decent offlaner now because of the Radiance heroes that people are picking are not that strong against Dawn. Lifestealer, Jug, Spectre. I know that those heroes, well, the Lifestealer and the Jug do well against melee heroes. Dawnbreaker, not a normal melee hero. You stand on the creep wave against her, she double nukes you, she destroys you. And then also she has her ult, which is healing over time, which counters the slow methodical damage from the Radiance heroes that are being picked right now. Okay, so next up we have the B tier. And I told you Visage would be back. There he is. I thought about it between A and B tier. And I think with Visage, there's a good amount of stuff in the game that I think is good against Visage. Like, if you're against a Bat mid, it feels really bad. Even though Boots of Bearing and Pipe are both very strong on Visage, and, Boots of Bearing just got buffed. And, of course, Pipe is good against the Radiances of the world. I think your early laning is still pretty weak. Like, once you get birds, yeah, you're sick. But you don't really, punish a Spectre in the early laning phase. And then once the early laning phase is over, sometimes there are heroes that, counter you from the other rules of the other lanes. But with that being said, still good. Obviously, B tier is nothing to scoff at. Timbersaw. Timber is pretty much just in the same place that he was in the previous patch, which was good. I actually underrated this hero prior to the major. I did not respect enough that you can get out of the lane with very low levels in reactive armor and just kind of play around the nukes. And he does do a metric shit ton of damage. Like, Timber is kind of like the new Leshrac in a way, where it feels like he's not completely unkillable, but I suppose that depends on what patch of Leshrac you're talking about. But he's not completely unkillable. He does a lot of damage, and he's kind of hard to kill, but he's just mainly a damage dealer. Like, he's not this unkillable beast that he used to be. And the way that you play the lane on Timber is you cut the lane. If you're against an Ursa or Monkey King or one of these hard counters, you just cut the wave. Abaddon. His BAT got increased. He's strictly better at right-clicking things now, which is why a lot of people are picking it as a carry. And so because of that, I think it's fine as an offlane. It's a good flex. You can go for a Radiance as an offlaner if your game is pretty good. If your game is not super good, you can go for all of the support items like the Boots of Bearing. Honestly, Meteor Hammer is probably not that bad on him, but the thing is, this hero already kind of pushes towers anyway, so probably you don't want to do that. I'm sure it works because that's just a fine item. But yeah, Abaddon, I would say the option of if you're dominating, you can get a Radiance is very nice. It's very nice. Muerta, I personally, when I read this hero's skills, I was like, oh, she's a carry because of her third ability. Turns out that's probably her least important ability that exists, and the one that you shouldn't play around. I see a lot of people going Blink, Ether Lens, and using her Q to, I think it's her Q, Dead Shot, whatever one that fears you. They're blinking in and then fearing people out, and it's very annoying, actually. Like, it's a really cool skill shot, and her W is just fucking crazy. The little ghosty ring thing that silences and seems to slow for 100%. It's very difficult to trade in this thing, and it's hard to lane against, too. Like, I think her laning is incredibly strong. The only thing is, like, her third ability in a offlane or support position feels like a wasted ability. Otherwise, she'd be like A or S tier, genuinely. She just has like a non-ability. Pango, still the same hero that he was last patch. The biggest nerf to him, I think, is Shields Crash. They made it do a little bit less damage at level 1. Nothing hugely significant. And I honestly think the ability to scale for a lot of offlaners is very important, especially after the major, where I played a pub with RTC the other day, and he said something along the lines of like, I was Magnus, so it was actually me that he was complaining about. But it basically was bitching that the enemy team had 3 cores and we only had 1 or 2, like carries. And so basically, there's this concept from the major of having more heroes that can scale to deal with like the single core lineup of like the Lina that people are picking. And yeah, the more cores, the better. And Pango can go for Diffusal and he can scale, or he can go for Guardian Greaves and Pipe, and he can play for utility, depending on what you need in the game. So I think that's very important. Centaur. The biggest change with him is, well, number 1, he can connect his stun into a Meteor Hammer, and I don't think he's as reliant as Axe is on the Vanguard. Centaur, you don't need to run behind the tower and like tank creeps, and Axe kind of does, right? So I think Centaur going for Meteor Hammer in the early game is totally fine. And then once you eventually get the Aghanim Scepter on Centaur, now you get extended duration on your ult based on the Aghanim Scepter, which is very nice. Obviously just for Centaur, but that's still, it makes the Ags do a little bit more than just make that stupid fucking cart come up. Slardar. I think Slardar is like the ultimate counter to Jug, Nakes, and arguably even Spectre, and these are all very popular heroes right now in the safe lane because of Radiance. So that's kind of why Slardar's stock goes up. But then also, Corrosive Haze cast range got increased, and honestly, like, it means that people have to be careful. They walk up to you in lane, like even if it's a support who's just trying to sit there and like nuke creeps, you know, like a Crystal Maiden trying to run around the trees and just sit there and push the lane out. You can now ult her from farther away, and she has to be very careful that you don't dive her. So I think that is actually a pretty significant change, that the level 1 Corrosive Haze has pretty long cast range. Tidehunter. This hero always really liked building a Meteor Hammer because he's like Sand King in the sense that he's good at pushing people out of lane. If you run at a tower, the enemy team often just runs away from you because they're like, we don't want to fight into Ravage. And so you can Meteor Hammer towers, and he's a hero that would just, what do they say? What are they, like free-handed or whatever? Free ball? I don't know why I'm thinking of that. But like, he would just throw the Meteor Hammer down and hope somebody walks into it. He doesn't really have a combo with it. You don't see people doing like Ravage and a Meteor Hammer. It's literally just like, people run away from you, you Meteor Hammer a tower. And so, yeah, he can do that a little bit better now because he's the one hero in the game that would just throw Meteor Hammer out without actually having setup for it. Enigma, this hero was good and just still is good. You can't use Eidolons on ranged creeps, but honestly, like, melee creeps have so much HP that, yeah, you're denying less, but you're still pulling the lane back just as fast because while they do less damage, they have more HP. So you barely notice the change for Enigma. Legion Commander, the recent-ish Blade Mail changes where it does now more than 100% damage reflect have been great for her. I think she's very strong against the Radiance heroes for the exact same reason that Slardar is. Like, if you just go to Dota Buff and you look at the heroes that Legion Commander counters, and you click the carries, you'll notice a lot of the heroes that are very popular right now. And she counters them in lane and also in game. And so does Slardar to like lesser of a degree, because I think Legion dueling like a Juggernaut or a Lifestealer with a Blade Mail is pretty much a guaranteed kill, depending on how farmed the Lifestealer is, because he can actually lifesteal. But in any case, like, she counters them in game as well as in the lane, which is solid. Alchemist. Well, the Radiance offlane Alch build was a thing prior to this patch, and now Radiance is even better. And this hero, I'm also seeing people use the Alch Stun into Meteor Hammer. I think it's dog shit. I don't think that build is good. I think the Radiance build is way better. But you can do both. You can do both, depending on if you want to lose or if you want to win. But I would say, yeah, go for Radiance. It's good. Doom, still strong. This is an interesting case where I think that a lot of the Radiance buyer carries don't pressure a Doom. And with a lot of these other heroes, like we talked about with like Slardar and Legion Commander, they pressure that carry. But the thing with Doom is that you need to pressure me, because Doom is going to 1v5 the game at a point with the Aghanim Scepter, Octarine Core, Refresher. You go late enough with Doom, and he's going to win the game. So basically, these carries don't pressure him like a Lina or a Drow or a Nature's Prophet would. And so Doom is like, hell yeah, I'm going to free farm. That sounds cool to me. Viper, ultimate lane dominating hero against melee heroes. Melee carries are becoming more popular because of Radiance and other things. So Viper, very solid right now because of that. Doesn't exactly buy Boots of Bearing. Doesn't buy Radiance or anything like that. Or Meteor Hammer. But that doesn't matter, honestly, because the meta is shifting a lot because of these items. So Viper becomes powerful as a result of that. Okay, let's move on to the A tier. It's a lot of the same faces in here, not gonna lie. Nature's Prophet, let's start with him first. The nerfs to him, they nerfed some of his stats. They nerfed Wrath of Nature a little bit. Doesn't really matter. It doesn't. He's an A tier. I think I put him in S tier in the other offlane tier list that I did. I don't remember. It was so long ago. But in any case, I think he's A tier not because of the nerfs, but because I was just wrong about him being an S tier offlaner. I think this hero is just a way better carry than he is an offlaner. And he's just still a good offlaner because he's so good as a hero that he gets to be A tier as an offlaner. Primal Beast. This is arguably the ultimate Boots of Bearing hero. Precisely because, well, the move speed is great, obviously, because of Trample. But man, that guaranteed like 30 or whatever regen on a Primal with the HP pool that he has, and then he can pick up a pipe. Like, this guy feels unkillable. If he feels so unkillable right now, I couldn't fathom Primal Beast getting better than previous patch, because I feel like he was good. Like, he was really good as an offlaner. And so, yeah, the Boots of Bearing pipe, it feels rough. It feels rough to play against him. Darkseer, I think they actually nerfed his normal punch a little bit in the patch, but what people discovered is that the Aghanim Shard is fucking busted, dude. It's a 50% slow. It's kind of insane. And it cancels blink too. So if people are chasing you and you have the Aghanim Shard trail, it's like they just can't catch you. They can't blink after you. It's actually good. I see a lot of people going for the shard as early as humanly possible. And as we talked about, Pipe, Grieve, still very powerful, especially against the Radiance heroes. Mars, my favorite thing about the Meteor Hammer on Mars is not only, like, of course, you can connect it now because Spear is not this massive duration where, you know, it's not 3 seconds. You couldn't connect the Meteor Hammer before, at least not guaranteed. But Mars has struggled with damage for a long time now because of Amar the Fucker. They've nerfed this hero and Collapse. They've nerfed this hero into the ground. They've nerfed the damage a lot over and over again. And the Meteor Hammer now gives you enough damage that you can full to 0 heroes again. And that's what Mars used to be able to do when he was OP, and that's what he can do now. And also, he's another hero that would like to build one small item into Blink Dagger. You don't want to go Blink Rush, because then if you don't use it to kill 5 heroes immediately, you're useless. But, you know, a little item before the Blink, that's the good spot. Brewmaster. They gave the Fire Panda extra armor. I think that's the one change they made to him, which is honestly pretty good for when you get the Aghanim Scepter, and honestly just for when you pop your ult, it's a lot harder for them to kill all of your pandas. But this is also a great Radiance hero. This is a decent Boots of Bearing hero. It's another hero that's like Tidehunter, where you run at a tower and you threaten people with your big ult, where it's like, you come fight me, and then the enemy team's like, well, fuck you, I'm not going to come fight you. With the Meteor Hammer, you can actually take towers. Although I will say, I'm seeing people just go the regular Brewmaster build on this hero, which is just Aghanim Scepter Rush, and it still looks really good. It just seems like a really solid hero all around. Okay, finally, we've gotten to the ultimate tier, the S tier. Shocker, it's the same shit. Okay, we'll quickly do this because these heroes are kind of the same. Lycan, they didn't nerf summons anywhere near enough. That 10% or whatever it was should have been like 30% less damage to towers. Helmdom 2 is still very powerful. This is arguably the best summons Boots of Bearing hero in the game. Like, everybody has always gone drums on Lycan. This has been a classic for a long time. Giving all of your summons the attack speed is quite powerful. And so his win rate is 60% right now. It's unbelievably high. Death Prophet, still stronger than ever. Guardian Greaves, still good. She still dumps on heroes in lane with Spirit Siphon. And you could argue that the change where they took her 20 health talent and put it to the 15 talent, they reduced the health by a little bit. It's still a 300 HP level 15 talent. That's pretty crazy, dude. Like, that could be argued that that's a buff. Yeah, and I honestly, a lot of people weren't even going for the Spirit Siphon talent anyway, that they replaced that with. So, yeah, she's still absolutely solid. Beastmaster, another Boots of Bearing hero. They didn't nerf summons anywhere near enough. A hero that farms ancient stacks, which is nice to have heroes that are able to do that from the off lane, because carries don't really like to farm the triangle too much anymore. But yeah, Beast, he's just the exact same hero. Nothing special, nothing new. You could technically go for a Meteor Hammer on him, but I don't see anybody doing that. It is literally just Boots of Bearing is now a higher priority item after you get the Helmdom 2. That's the only difference. Broodmother, the one different thing that I'm seeing with Broodmother is people are going for the Greaves and the Pipe. But on occasion, there is like Hex that comes out right after the Guardian Greaves. I've seen Hex coming out a lot earlier, but yeah, Brood has not been nerfed anywhere near enough. The biggest thing I would say with Brood is the Spiderling. I think the duration, they've reduced the duration on the max level Spiderlings, but at that point, you're pretty much an Aura bot anyway when you have the Spiderlings maxed out, so it really doesn't matter that much. Brood is still S tier. And then Magnus. Okay, this is the one interesting hero. This is the fun one. This hero is very strong against melee carries because they stand on the wave, and so you can skewer them back. You can also kite them in team fights. Also, a lot of melee carries are being picked in Dota right now, like Ursa, Slark. You can empower these heroes if they're on your team. Rubik, Snapfire, Willow, these ranged heroes that Mag pairs really well with in lane. These are still incredibly powerful. But the main thing, the best thing about this is that Magnus always struggles to find a place for the first, like, you lane, you usually do very well in the lane because you have nukes and ways of pushing the wave out, and you've skewer back, so people have to be afraid of you. A lot of the time, people leave the lane against you, like you're a Sand King, for example. But then there's like a window where he struggles. A lot of people will go for a mechanism and kind of just like, hey, I'm tanky. If you come at me in this lane, you try to kill me, I have a mech. But yeah, there's this struggle where it's like you don't know what to do, and then you get the blink, and then you team fight, and you skewer back, and then you have a job. But it's like there's this window where you don't have a job. Now you get a Meteor Hammer, and you push towers. You run out all the towers. Enemy team leaves your area. You farm like a motherfucker. You push towers like a motherfucker. It feels like you actually have a purpose in that 5-minute window that you didn't previously. And then with RP, you can connect with Meteor Hammer now, which is very solid in the early levels of RP. So yeah, Mag is actually very good tier. I think it was A tier before and quickly rising in the ranks because it counters a lot of the ranged carries as well, which are still quite popular. But now it's even better with the Meteor Hammer change. So Magnus is very good, arguably the best offlaner, but we'll see if I eat my words in about 2 weeks from now. Anyway, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I hope to see you in the next video. And also here, I'll do it right this time. Here is the full tier list for everyone that skipped to the end. Goodbye.